Hello guys and welcome back to Clockwork Noodles for another breakdown of Vinland Saga Season 2 episode number 4. This was a very real episode, an episode which is very different from a lot of the stuff that I'm breaking down this season. There's a lot to talk about. A very interesting episode to see a lot of parallels going on. There's some very nice symbology this week. We're going to take it nice and chill, talk about what we've just seen. I'm going to give you my thoughts on what we've seen this episode. Before we get going, do make sure you guys are subscribed. In 2 weeks time, I'm going to bring out a midway review. In the midway review, I'm going to crown top 3 OPs, EDs, and current standing of anime. It also allows me to talk to all of the fans on the channel because most of the time everyone's on their videos of what they're watching, but these videos do allow me to talk to everybody on the channel, get everyone together, see how you're going, and give you my thoughts on what I think of the season so far. It's been a very interesting season, so I definitely want to get my thoughts out there. But let's get straight to it. Trauma has a face. Nice animation. I'm going to have to say, Mappa doing us proud this week. That animation where Snake goes in to try hitting him. It's the look on his face, that fierceness on his face. We suddenly see Askeladd haunting Thorfinn within his eyes. I don't think Snake particularly looks much like Askeladd. I think there's a lot of differences between the two. But I think what Thorfinn is picking up on is the aura of how commanding both of them are. Snake is a very commanding presence. The men listen to him. You can see they're terrified. They respect him. Very similar to the way Askeladd ran his little group. That fierce look he shoots ends up triggering a subconscious trauma response from Thorfinn. Now, I don't think Thorfinn actively was in control of when he did that flip. He got out the way, and that's when you see old Thorfinn still in there somewhere. I don't think he was in control actively doing it, because we have seen that Thorfinn's mind is as near as dead as you're going to get. He is very detached, basically on autopilot. However, this is us seeing his body reacting. His body suddenly senses danger and it tries to survive. A lot of what you see with Thorfinn, especially from season 1, is Thorfinn had this drive to survive. I have a goal, I want to kill you, I want my revenge. Everything he was doing was survival instincts, and that's what Thorfinn's got, very different from Einar. Both of them are characters who are suffering from trauma. I actually mentioned this briefly yesterday with the To Eternity lot, because trauma also came up with Fushi. I am very tempted to do a separate little video discussing the portrayal of trauma when it comes to characters, mainly between people like Fushi, Einar, Thorfinn. All 3 of those characters have trauma, and the anime shows that they're in show the effect of trauma in very different ways, and I do think it would be interesting to do a slight comparison, but you'd have to let me know if something like that would be interesting. I used to do proper in-depth breakdowns on topics like that. Channel wasn't very big. We didn't really get the biggest response in the world, so I just presumed people weren't interested. I do believe that Snake is the first authority figure we've seen since coming to the camp. Now, Ketil is kind. He doesn't resemble Askeladd in the slightest. I can see why he hasn't triggered that response from Thorfinn. He's not come up to Thorfinn and threatened his life. But the moment Thorfinn sees that, he suddenly has that response where it all now starts to resurface. This is the first time that Snake's probably met Thorfinn. No doubt if he had done that kind of thing and been seen by the people at the farm, somebody would have said something. It would have been rumours floating around, everyone would be sus of Thorfinn. So we're actually quite lucky that it's only really the bodyguards who see Thorfinn act like that. What we are also seeing this week is Thorfinn's lack of purpose right now is the biggest hindrance. I'm worried because I don't believe he's going to find purpose as a slave. However, this was me writing before that really real scene when it came to him and Einar. Einar is actually quite a nice balance when it comes to Thorfinn, because Einar still has this drive to live, and yeah, sure, he's got purpose. It's the talk at the end that I think might have fixed the issue a tiny bit. I'll address it when we get there anyway, because I want to quickly talk about early medicine, because if you guys didn't know, my thesis was on early modern medicine and how a popular medicine became born or was aided by the birth of the printing press. But medicine is my type of thing, and it's very interesting to see. This is early modern, so people don't really understand medicine, but they do realise that your wound could become infected, it could go septic, so we need to do something about it. But even just putting an ointment in the wound, depending on what he's using, it should hopefully repel dirt and grease getting in. I think Thorfinn would have to make sure he's bathing those wounds as well. But it's very interesting to see that they've got a basic concept of medication. As I was speaking about purpose, we do see a bit of a purpose when Einar finds out that the angel of his dreams is the reason why there was a response. So they end up at the doctor, or the guy who looks after the health, I'm guessing. She's the one who ended up alerting him that there's been this issue, Thorfinn's in a bad way. Einar has got a purpose. It makes him happy. Even if he has this desire to be free, which is also purpose, he's also got this desire that whenever he sees her, she provokes a response within him that makes him happy. It's going to be interesting to see if Thorfinn can find a purpose to live. I like the similarities between the hedgehog and Einar, because the mother hedgehog comes along, picks up the baby. Einar at this point is scolding Thorfinn for not saying thank you. Sad, because I also believe Thorfinn doesn't really know how to say the word thank you, because during season 1, he had absolutely no reason to say thank you. There was no reason for him to say it. Thorfinn is taken back by how kind he's just been treated. He's had his wounds treated. He's got a new tunic. You can see he is touched by it, but he just doesn't know how to react. You can see it in his face, and I think Mappa's doing a fantastic job at conveying expressions, because sometimes you can't say anything. Anime isn't always the best for this, and it's why sometimes live action does sometimes teeter out where you can read somebody's facial expressions, because they can carry an emotion. But they're doing great, because you can see Thorfinn's eyes widen. He looks touched, but he can't react or say thank you, and that's when Einar comes in as a bit of a parental figure, saying, right now, you need to say thank you, because you're being rude. And I like that, because they pair it up with the hedgehog moment. At this point, also think Thorfinn was Levi from Attack on Titan. There was so much similarity in his vocals. It's actually Grisha Jaeger, Eren's dad. To me, Thorfinn's voice actor sounds very young. It's Grisha. That's a credit to the voice actor for being able to pull off 2 roles. He's pulled off a much older, sinister role, which is often the red herring in Attack on Titan. And now he's playing Thorfinn, where I want to protect Thorfinn. He's just so much of a baby still. And in his nightmares, you see he's always represented as young Thorfinn. I don't think Thorfinn's ever really had the chance to grow up, so he's stuck in the mindset of being a young boy lost in the forest. I was really impressed at how open Thorfinn was being with Einar. He just answers the questions until we get to the how many people have you killed question, because Thorfinn knows that that's going to be the question that Einar doesn't want the answer to. Proof that Thorfinn has been listening to Einar. So when Einar had the conversation about what happened to his family, Thorfinn was listening. It's also very nicely timed with the falling tree. Thorfinn does confirm Einar's suspicions that he's not a normal person. Thorfinn has indeed taken lives. As soon as he said how many, in my head I was like, I really don't think he knows how many, because it's been so many. There's no surprise that he can't recall how many people he has killed. He's killed a lot of people. I love the symbology of Thorfinn, young Thorfinn, running through the forest, surrounded, and you see a lot of fallen trees around him representing the fallen bodies that he has taken when he's in his dreams or whether he's in his thoughts. He's shown as young Thorfinn, defenseless state, and often when you're seen as a child, you are more defenseless, you need more protection because you're a child. He reverts back to a very defenseless state of Thorfinn is what Einar hates, and when we're talking about trauma, Thorfinn triggers Einar's trauma. Thorfinn admits, I was the army that you hate so much, I was the invading force. He gives him the backstory on him being over with the Danes. It's natural that Einar would struggle to accept this, because this is what he didn't want to hear. He didn't want to hear that you were part of the reason why my family is now dead. It was warriors that ended up murdering his family. Interesting conversation, the way that it's handled, and obviously it now leads into this next sequence, which gets very real very quick. Nice portrayal of how quickly you can see that the circle of hate is endless. There's only one point later that I think it's broken, and I'll mention when I think that the vicious cycle gets broken a little bit later on. I want to mention the symbolism. Lost in a forest, he's trapped. It represents being trapped. There's endless trees, he can't get out, and we see Thorfinn is young still, because I believe he's never really had a chance to grow up as Thorfinn is being strangled. It's endless attack. Fire starts. Fire is always a very bad thing in your dreams. Seeing those flames as a destructive force, but it is such a intense sequence as Einar is angry, he wants revenge. The moment where the vicious cycle does break is because Einar stops himself, but he does give it a good go. He does try and strangle poor Thorfinn. Half of me at that point was like, I get why you're angry. I honestly get why you're angry, but you don't know the reasons behind any of it. You don't know if he was forced to do it. It's a very difficult topic to approach, but Vinland Saga really does get much respect from me for being a very real show, covering a very real topic of trauma, hate, night terrors. You see Thorfinn is haunted by night terrors and he's having the same dreams over and over again, caused by stress, caused by trauma, PTSD. It's a very raw anime. It's not glossing things over. It's one of the more real shows this season. But the moment where I think the toxic spiral was broken is when Einar states, you might be in hell, you're alive because you're allowed to be alive. I kind of think he means is, even if you've killed people, even if you've been through hell, you're still alive because somebody at one point protected you. Or if you've taken a life, your life is continuing. You're alive because you can. When he says that if you want to die, it's basically you being a coward, you're running away, you're taking the easy way out. You're being spoiled when people didn't have the choice that you did. Not everybody is lucky. Not everybody gets the same choice. And that's when you're thinking about his family. And Einar can see the faces of his family killed over and over again, because that's obviously going to haunt him. There's a lot of really nice uses of silence, long pauses. It is a real conversation. You don't get it very often with anime. The use of silence is powerful, and especially in a conversation like this where nobody is going to know how to respond. Thorfinn won't know how to respond. Einar is carrying the conversation at one point, but then Thorfinn is able to chip in. It's a very difficult conversation, which I really admire the way that the anime is handling it. The most impressive sentence that could have been said was by Einar. I know you didn't kill my family. He can distinguish that Thorfinn is not the people who killed his family. Yes, you're a warrior, but it doesn't make you all the same. Respect Einar so much, because it's very easy to hate a group of people because one person in that group of people did something bad to you, and then you see them all as bad. Natural response, but it takes a very mature mind to go, I can't hate everybody who, say, has a beard because one person with a beard did something bad to me. A very mature response. And when he says, not the people who killed my family, I get that. Very mature of him. And I think that is the moment where we see a break in the cycle, because Einar could have strangled him. He could have killed Thorfinn, and then the cycle of revenge and trauma continues. But at this point, he's chosen to take a different higher ground. I know you're different. You've done bad things, but you wanting to die is bad. And you can see that he's still in the circumstance that taking your own life is a bad thing. The way Einar is and the way he handles it, and he decides to just go to sleep. It ends in the way where you see Thorfinn thanking him. It's a very intense scene. It's difficult to really give you guys my opinion on it, because a lot of the stuff that I kind of fall back on is how it's being shown to you guys, what's being shown, and you see how mature Einar is and all of it. And then I just want to give Thorfinn a hug. I literally want to hug that guy, because he hasn't got a purpose to live. But I think what Einar gives him at this point is he shows him that you're alive at this point because you've been protected. Something has allowed you to keep on living at this point, which is something that not everybody gets. Maybe that will help Thorfinn look at his life in a different perspective. Nothing good has happened to you. However, you're still alive. Something out there is protecting you. Whether it's been your drive to survive or your survival instincts, you're still alive. And that's kind of what I got from the conversation. Let's quickly talk about the end, when we see our boy Canute being teased right at the end and seeing how different he is from season 1. He's grown up. He's toughened up. He is surrounded by the moonlight as well. Very nice symbology all the way through this episode. Moonlight, it brings out untold secrets. It's often seen as where the truth comes out, and I think he's coming back next week, because I think I saw Torkel, so I'm very excited to see our boy come back, because he was a very entertaining character. I wouldn't want to get into a fight with the guy, because all I can remember is him literally pile driving a load of guys with a spear. I think it was something really painful. I want to see him back though, because it would be nice to see some faces that we are familiar with. A bit of interesting info for you guys about Canute in general is he is remembered as a good ruler. He's always been surrounded by this positive attitude. He sent a large part of his army eventually home. He did actually rule for a decent amount of time. So if you were to compare his rule to the kings before and after him, he doubles them. And most of these rules only last about 5 or 6 years. This episode also confirms the second person in the OP, because I wasn't sure if it was Olmar. Don't think it is Olmar. I think it's Thorfinn, because he's wearing the new tunic and he's got his hair back. So the only reason I'm probably not recognising Thorfinn is because he's actually cleaned up a bit. He's put his hair back. I have never seen Thorfinn with his hair tied up. If he starts tying his hair up, he is going to look a lot more like his dad as well. Very excited to see where we go next week. It was a very heavy episode. I hope you guys go and have a little refresher. Go find something nice and pleasant to watch after this. I hope you look after yourselves and take a little break after something heavy. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your support. I hope to see you guys again next week. Have a good day, guys. Bye bye.